All right, today we're jumping into one of the stranger moments in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 21. We're talking about the time Jesus cursed a fig tree. I know, it sounds a little out of character at first glance, but trust me, this story is absolutely packed with meaning.
So there it is. That's the verse that gets everybody talking. Jesus is on his way into Jerusalem. He sees a fig tree with no fruit, curses it, and it just withers and dies on the spot. I mean, what is going on here? It seems so random, right? Well, let's unpack it together. Okay, so first up, what actually happened? Let's break down this strange morning curse.
So here's how it all plays out, and it happens fast. In verse 18, we see it's morning. Jesus is heading back to the city, and he's hungry. Simple enough. Then, in verse 19, he spots this fig tree that looks great. It's got all these leaves, which is basically an advertisement that it should have fruit. But there's nothing there. So he curses it, and it withers up instantly. You can just imagine the disciples' reaction in verse 20, right? They're just floored, completely blown away by how quickly it happened.
And that brings us to the big question, the one we're all thinking. Why? Why would Jesus do this to a tree? It seems so harsh. Well, this is so much more than just a story about a hungry man and a useless plant. This whole thing is a living, breathing symbol, a prophetic act with a message that's incredibly deep.
Yeah, to really get it, you have to see this tree for what it was, a living parable. You know, this whole idea of a fruitless fig tree wouldn't have been new to the disciples, not at all. For centuries in the Old Testament, it was this well-known symbol for the nation of Israel. You see prophets like Jeremiah and Micah using this exact same imagery to talk about a nation that was spiritually empty. So for the disciples, this would have clicked right away. And here's the absolute key. That fig tree, with all its lush green leaves, that was a perfect picture of the religious system in Israel at that moment. It looked good on the outside. They had the beautiful temple, the priests, all the ceremonies, they had all the leaves. But when Jesus looked closer, there was no fruit. No real change of heart, no justice, no love. It was all show and no substance. So that's what makes this act so powerful. The tree withering away so suddenly, it was like a lightning strike. A shocking physical preview of the judgment that was coming for a religious system that looked alive on the surface, but was actually dead on the inside. But hold on, there's another layer to this. It wasn't just a warning for Israel. Jesus turns this into a powerful, direct lesson on faith for his followers. So in verse 21, Jesus gives this incredible response. He basically takes their amazement at the dead tree and says, "You think that's something? Let me tell you about the power source." He points them to faith. He says that if they have real faith, faith without doubt, they could do even more. They could literally tell a mountain to move, and it would. And then in verses 21 and 22, he just lays it all out for them. It's this simple but profound principle. You start with faith. You can't let doubt creep in and mess it up. You ask in prayer, and then you'll receive. It's like he's handing them the keys to how this incredible power actually works. So, okay, the first big lesson for the disciples is pretty clear. Genuine faith is powerful. It's a kind of trust that can tackle what looks completely impossible. But remember that mountain he talked about? Well, there's a lot more to that than meets the eye. And that brings us to this deeper prophetic level, the warning for Jerusalem hidden inside this talk about the mountain. So let's really think about this. I mean, given the whole context, with the fig tree being a symbol for Israel, is it possible that this mountain wasn't just a literal mountain? Could it be a symbol too? Well, if you look at the rest of Scripture, the answer is a definite yes. The Old Testament is full of examples where mountain is code for a kingdom, a seat of power, a huge city. Prophets like Jeremiah and Daniel did this all the time. It was just part of their prophetic vocabulary. And think about where they were standing. The mountain right in front of them was Mount Zion. That's where the temple stood. It was the absolute heart of the entire religious system he was challenging. So this mountain wasn't just any mountain. It was the physical center of the very same fruitless religion that the fig tree represented. So you see how brilliant this is? It's two messages packed into one single event. On one hand, for the disciples, you have this incredible, timeless lesson about the power of faith. But on the other hand, for Jerusalem, it's a very specific ticking clock kind of warning. He's saying that the whole religious system, that giant mountain, was on the verge of being judged and totally removed. And what's really chilling is that this prophecy came true and with scary precision. Just a generation later, in 70 AD, the Roman army came in and completely destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. The mountain of Jewish religious and political power was literally torn down, and symbolically, it was cast into the sea. And in prophetic language, the sea often means the Gentile or non-Jewish nations.
So when you put it all together, cursing the fig tree was this amazing, multi-layered event. It was a lesson, for sure, but it was also a warning. A living, breathing demonstration that just looking religious isn't enough. Without the real fruit of faith, it's meaningless. And it showed that God will clear away what's barren to make room for something new and genuinely fruitful.
So what started out looking like a kind of bizarre, angry outburst over a piece of fruit, well, it turns out to be an incredibly profound statement. And it really leaves us with a challenge, doesn't it? It forces us to look at our own lives, past all the outward stuff, the leaves, and ask that tough question, where's the fruit?